at this point.
All right. So you took a look at some national stuff. Tell us. Let me put you. I'm getting ready. I apologize. They haven't seen you yet, and we'll put you on there. What I'm going to do is fix this for our Ustream, for the Ustream folks. I'm going to put the line in so we can hear your audio and we can hear any callers. If you'd like to call us, please do so. You'd be more than welcome to. And our number again is 818-688-6625. So what's hot in the news today?
Well, it's the news day was a little on the slow side. We got a report from the Fed that was much more conservative about the outlook of the economy and jobs and stuff like that, and it's just it's not surprising. It's the same kind of estimate that the folks, all the private economists have been looking at, so not much to talk about there, really. Something really interesting I found, and I'm a total nerd for net neutrality stuff, so if you don't find it as interesting, I apologize, but the Netherlands went ahead and they passed a law about concerning what mobile cell phone carriers are allowed to block on their internet access. So now in the Netherlands, cell phone companies won't be able to block internet sites such as Skype, or there's another one called WhatsApp that actually allowed you to text online for free. And I mean, the logic from the cell phone company side is that they should be able to block services that are essentially losing them money. But when you're looking at it from a net neutrality standpoint, blocking sites like that really take away from the freedom of the internet. It's become, the net neutrality issue is something that has been on the forefront for a while, but we haven't seen much legislation about it. No one's quite sure where they want to side on whether the internet needs more restrictions or regulation or not. So we might see the wild frontier of the internet changing over the next couple of years, and we might not. Net neutrality has been something that people have been looking for action on for a while, and we just haven't seen it yet. So congrats to the Dutch over there on their stepping forward.
How did this become a liberal a liberal conservative issue where the Republicans are saying it's invasive, or it's government overreach, to impose all these unnecessary regulations on the internet?
I really think that at this point, the Democrats and the Republicans will make anything a polarized issue if they can. I think it's not surprising that the Republicans have decided that it's overregulation, because that is one of their favorite terms to throw around. But at the same time, I think that this is a serious issue that just hasn't, it's new, of course. I mean, because not that the internet is new, but of course legislation over it is. And I think that it's important that there's bipartisan work done on this in the same way that, if we were, say, passing regulations on how to develop the moon or some planet that we'd never been to before, it shouldn't become a polarized issue. It should be one of cooperation and, making smart decisions for everyone involved, not only consumers, but business, and, the sanctity of the internet also is pretty important.
I'm pretty adamant about it. I think the whole thing boils down to me. It's I think it is, if you wanted to invent the next whatever application, Twitter, Netflix, and they wanted to tell you that you had to pay in order to based on how many consumers, the bandwidth was being used, as opposed to the consumer paying. And I think that you wouldn't, if they had that ability, then you wouldn't have any competitor, and everyone would just be locked in.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, the argument for that this is over-regulation says that it's going to affect business and that it's harmful to business, and yet by regulating industries such as this, you give smaller businesses a chance. I mean, if you're going to let cell phone companies and internet service providers do whatever they want about any site, you really face a problem with the smaller businesses. I mean, the number of IP addresses is vanishing. They're estimating that we're going to run out in the near future. So the internet's about to become much more limited. And it makes sense that we have regulation. I
think we should have some regulation.
Oh, well, of course. I mean, everything in moderation.
I like nutrition. Right? Like, I was just, okay, let me bash Applebee's. I was in an Applebee's, and I asked the lady, do you have monosodium glutamate, which is one of the wonderful things I inherited from my dad.
MSG, for everyone out there who doesn't know.
That stuff says no added MSG. So, anyway, sorry, I'm getting dressed here. So, anyway, they said, the lady comes back, very nice server. She comes back and she says, here's a list of the 8 allergens. And basically it said, nothing's safe to eat here if you have any of these allergies. And so my thing was, why doesn't someone tell me what is safe to eat here? Because this is a common allergy. I think like estimates are 20% of the people are allergic to this. And I just think it's a big national chain. It's not some mom and pop shop that's, but this is a company that it's not an unreasonable request. It's not like, some rare disease you'd find on house. It's a common allergy. And I just want to know if they had it. And they don't make their ingredients available online. Or I called the place, and she was like, well, the FDA doesn't make us, so we don't. Well, there are certain things, it's not unreasonable to say a national chain. I don't know how many places Applebee's has, but it's a lot. That they would have, some sort of knowledge of what they're serving people to eat. And I think we both left hungry, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I think a certain amount of regulation is definitely necessary. I mean, if you look at just health regulations, I mean, you don't want rodent feces in your food, and yet if that wasn't regulated, I mean, there's plenty of restaurants that already have problems with that. Imagine if it wasn't regulated. I really don't think that you can take a yes or no view on this issue. Regulation is something that you need to be in the middle on. And unfortunately, that's just not where our politics is right now. So
it's obviously the dangerous left-wingers who, want things like ingredients on food. Just kidding, of course. Not really. All right. What else you got going on?
Let's see. Well, while we're talking about, cell phone carriers, I also found out today that Verizon Wireless is looking at getting rid of their flat rate plans. So if you have, for example, an unlimited data plan, they're looking at getting rid of that so that they'd be charging all of their customers for the amount of data they use. So all of you out there with your smartphones that are leafing through a newspaper or what have you, look at paying a lot more than you do potentially for your cell phone. If that was possible.
Is this made AT&T even more popular?
It might. I mean, it's a weird business move, I think, on Verizon's part. I'm sure that money-wise, they're worried about AT&T and their mergers and it becoming a super company, but at the same time, price is the way that you're going to combat that. And by raising rates, which is essentially what this is doing, it's just not a smart move. I can't see that it would be a smart move on any front.
Yeah, I was beating up on Yahoo earlier today, and which I try to do every chance I get. Because it's a long story. I have an open letter to Yahoo, but all right, what else you got?
Let's see. We can talk about Michael Bay and his affection for 3D movies. Apparently, 3D movies are falling out of public favor, which is not that surprising. The technology just hasn't been refined enough so that the movie experience is worth that extra $3 or $5 at the movie theater to watch it in 3D. But Michael Bay, who of course has his new Transformers movie, which I believe is the third one coming out soon, is really pushing to argue that the 3D experience is totally worth it and is everything that cinema should be. And I really think that it just speaks towards the fact that Michael Bay uses effects such as 3D as a crutch in his movie making. I've never been a huge fan of his, but
isn't a lot of it, if they use it as a constant stream of Top Gun stuff versus using it as it's there? Like Avatar clearly was a must. Did you even see it in 3D?
I did see Avatar in 3D, and I think that Avatar needed the 3D. That without the 3D, Avatar would not have been the same experience. But I also think that Avatar's the script for Avatar and all of the writing involved was horrendous. So without the visuals, Avatar would have been a complete waste.
You don't think it was the masterful script, say, of one of his Terminator movies?
Yeah, no, I think Avatar was a great movie if you're a fan of, and for all those gleeks out there, mashups, which is when you take two songs and put them together. Avatar was really like that for movies. It was like Pocahontas meets the Smurfs movie. And Fern Gully, actually, I found a couple Fern Gully references in there too. It was poor, and it's a shame that it was the most expensive movie ever made, and it took him so long to write the script for it.
Well, it wasn't that. Okay, not that James Cameron needs a defense, because it was the highest grossing film of all time.
That's true. It paid for itself. I mean,
not adjusted for inflation, though. If you adjust for like population and stuff, inflation, I think Gone with the Wind is still number one by far. Like that's the Thriller album of movies, and then everything else is like half of that and then down. But straight dollars, of course, that there's always going to be records like that because it's always going to be as prices go up, especially 3D because you got a premium.
It's true.
But I think in the mall it's like $15 or some ridiculous thing.
Yeah, it's $10 to see a regular movie, so 15 sounds about right for 3D.
I've got my LED 32-inch about 5 feet away from me, 120 hertz TV. And I don't know, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I know like Leo Laporte is always fussing about this. He thinks 3D is nonsense, that you just need a good quality signal of two-dimensional, and that's fine. He has a point. And I think, I don't know, it was a bust. There were all these displays and everything. I was in a Best Buy. I was like, how's the whole 3D thing going? And he's like, oh, gosh, not particularly well. So
yeah. I think until it steps up to the point where it's a completely immersive experience. I mean, if you've ever seen 3D in like an IMAX theater, or even bigger, the Omni theaters, I mean, that is completely different from seeing it in a movie theater. And I can't imagine that seeing it on your small screen at home would be worth the money for the technology.
Okay. If you would like to call our program, 818-688-6625. That's 818-688-6625. You're welcome to do so. We would love to hear from you, although we haven't figured out how Emily can hear you. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I don't know. We'll figure that out in the unlikely event someone calls. All right. I love this. Rochester woman arrested after videotaping police from her own front yard. In May, Rochester Police Department arrested a woman on a charge of obstructing government administration. This is from, is this AP? This is on, this is by Matt Sledge on Huffington Post. Disclosure, I write for Huffington Posts occasionally. In May, Rochester Police Department arrested a woman on a charge of obstructing government administration after she videotapes officers' search of a man's car. The charge is a criminal misdemeanor. So she was on her front lawn, and the video, which I was going to have, but we had technical glitches, not unlike yesterday. But so she's on her front lawn. The officer, apparently she said something, because on the video it says like, well, by what you said before, you're anti-police. So obviously she pissed the guy off. Okay, let's just say he's pissed off at her. And maybe he had a right to be. I don't know. So they pull her friend over in front of her house. She's standing in front of her lawn. She says, I'm on my front lawn. He says, I don't feel safe with you there. You're on the sidewalk. It's my sidewalk or something. And then he tells her to step back. She's like, I don't think I should have to. And she ends up, they arrest her on this charge. It seems like we're in this whole this is I was reading this thing in Maryland where somebody was freaking out that they're on this new thing that if you've the cops have the right to say you don't have my permission to videotape me, so they're arresting you.
That's just not true.
It seems so outrageous. There was another one on Drudge or one of these Huffington, I don't know, but there's this guy who is hearing impaired and he's a train freak, and he's not in Muslim garb. There, I said it. He doesn't look like some guy who's scanning stuff, but he just likes to tape trains. He said, I like to tape trains, and he videotapes all sorts of trains. And they came up and they hassled him and detained him. They didn't arrest him, but they detained him for like half an hour, because he wouldn't stop videotaping trains in a train station.
The big difference here and the big distinction for all of you out there that are planning on videotaping the police in the near future is if you're on public property, you can pretty much do whatever you want as far as videotaping or photographing things. But
I don't think that's the case. I don't know what state. I should have known this, but in New York or Maryland or something, they actually are saying that they're arresting people for this. From these gotcha videos.
I think it's a violation of the freedom of the press. If you were a reporter and you're out there and they arrested you, it would be a huge deal. And in the days of iReporters, which as a reporter, I applaud the public's enthusiasm about journalism, but they're taking my job. It's totally, if you're on public property, you've got the right to do whatever you want to do as far as taking pictures and stuff like that is concerned. I think a big thing to look out for here is if you take off the police, they're gonna, push you and try to put you on the wrong side of the law. It's just the way it is. If that woman had, very calmly explained that I have a right to be here and, I'm going to continue taping you from my front yard or what have you, and it hadn't escalated into an argument, I'm sure she would not have been arrested. And
we don't know what was said before the camera started rolling.
Also true.
But you have a right to be a jerk. And you have a right to be stupid. You have a right to be arrogant on your front lawn.
You have a right to be, but do you want to be? Really, you got to think about...
No, just like this professor guy. And we don't want to get in trouble like the president, well, obviously the police in this case acted stupidly. And then, then they all had a beer and everything's fine. And apparently he was like cussing them pretty good, but he was arrested in his own house. Mm-hmm. And then there were all these charges. I don't want to even get into the whole Professor Gates thing, but I think you have a right to be on your property and videotape whatever. It just seems so. And she was like a woman in her 40s or something. She's wearing shorts and tank top and flip-flops and has a video camera. She's not posing a threat.
Yeah.
The cop was pissed off and overreacted.
But
do they have the right to do that? And should they be held accountable? Because I'm sure they'll be, my experience when you look into these incidents, especially in Virginia, I assume other states, it's all personnel matter. Mm-hmm. The town attorney, Thomas Robinette in Front Royal, I was asking him about a complaint, and I forget what the complaint was, but there was one. I said, so you won't release even in an aggregate form where you take the names out, or I'm sorry, even in a redacted form where you take the names out, you won't release a police complaint. You won't release a number of complaints filed a year. You won't release anything that there even are any complaints. There's no official acknowledgement. They hide behind this FOIA exemption. So you could have, I have a number of friends and people I respect who are on the Front Royal Police Department. So I'm not bashing them by any means. But the whole notion that you would have some government armed force that is accountable only to themselves without any public oversight or even knowledge of internal oversight, and that you're paying this group of people to enforce the law, and by and large they do a good job and they're popular, and we need them or we'd have mayhem. That said, it seems overly secretive that if there is a legitimate complaint, the people have a right to know. They're hiring this guy. Was this guy behaving recklessly, and was it covered up? And they have every opportunity to cover it up. And absolute power corrupts absolutely, is the old saying. But you don't do anybody any favors by not. If if you create a situation where they can do whatever they want, even though you assume they're being professional, but no one knows for sure, it does allow an opportunity for someone who wanted to, abuse their authority.
It's
and
true.
I think that is classic First Amendment issue. The First Amendment does not exist so you can say, I love my mom and apple pie is great. It exists to protect unpopular speech. That's what it's there for. It's not for you to say, I'm a good Christian, God-loving American. It's for you to say, I'm a Jew or a Muslim or a Hindu or whatever on a street corner and be protected from arrest because you're not in the norm, so to speak.
Yeah, and the First Amendment does protect unpopular speech, but it doesn't protect aggressive speech. I mean, as soon as you cross that line and the police officer can consider what you're saying to be, threatful, or like a threat towards them, or really, I mean, that's really where you have to play it. And you can say whatever you want, and, that's your right, but if you're thinking about getting up there and talking to the police, consider keeping your voice down. I mean, like, say it calmly. Say it like a civilized member of society. And, I mean, we have these rights, but it's always good to exercise them as being conscious of, being a civilized member of society and not a loon on the side of the road. Or I don't know if you saw, it was a Colbert that did a great piece on the guy that would drive by cops and give them the finger from his car. And
Balls.
Yeah, he very mockingly said, this guy is, the best citizen in the country, and he's totally exercising his First Amendment rights, and on and on and on and on. And, it's really, there comes a point when you got to ask yourself if what you're doing is productive and if you're actually contributing by flipping off the police.
Well, that obviously...
It's an extreme example.
If that's allowed, I'm surprised.
Oh, he had been arrested several times.
I'm surprised. I'm sure he has, some sort of legal bills stack somewhere. But yeah, I don't know if he should be. I mean, I think I don't know. I mean, that's an extreme case.
Yeah, but I mean, it's tricky, and regulating the police is tricky, and it's obvious that it hasn't been done right in a lot of places. I mean, police corruption is, wide known in this country and really everywhere in the world.
So you're saying the police are corrupt?
How can you argue that some of them aren't? But I mean, there's also a lot of them out there that are just trying hard to do a good job at what they do, and it's a tricky job. It's a dangerous job, and in their defense, they never know whether that woman with the video camera is going to cross that line and start, beating on their car with a baseball bat or something to that effect. So it's understandable that people that are on their guard all day would overreact in some situations. Not giving them an excuse, but just saying that, you might want to think about giving an officer a break next time you're ready to yell at him. Granted,
give a poor defenseless cop a break out there,
right?
Folks.
Before he tases you.
Yeah, I think this guy, what we need to do is we need to, I don't know if you're on tomorrow, but we got to talk about this guy who was freaking out, really interesting guy from England who was freaking out. We'll talk about this tomorrow. You here tomorrow?
Yeah.
He was freaking out in costume about a zoning law thing that's going to happen. And,
right, in Lynchburg.
Yeah, he's from England, ironically. And now that is no bastion of First Amendment freedoms. But we are in Virginia, in Lynchburg right now, and the First Amendment, along with the other 9, I think the final version was written by James Madison, and he was the 5th District Congressman in Virginia, what is now Charlottesville area. Mm-hmm. We're in the 6th, but part of the city is in, I don't even know, I think we're in the 6th here, but we could be in the 5th. We're close.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it holds something dear to my heart, the fact that we can do this. It is interesting that it has progressed to the point where the thing that says the right, the whole concept of freedom of speech has been extended to the right to use a civilian, non-reporter, just Joe citizen using your cell phone to tape a police stop. How it's been interpreted that way. So it's interesting.
Well, I mean, that just gets down to what makes me a journalist more than anyone else on the street. I mean, because I have a degree and a job, but I mean, you got to look at it. Good majority of the journalists out there don't even really have jobs right now. So, I mean, when you get down to that right, if I have a right to tape someone as a journalist, so does everyone else. We essentially represent the general public. And so if the general public wants to go out and do my job, go for it.
That's a whole thing, because there was the whole when the first notion of a blog. What's a blog?
It's true.
There was some sorting out that occurred early on, because there was this legitimate question: if can any moron with a web page, which is you can get them free, to say you're could some person, not a criminal, not arrest record or whatever, start a blog and apply for White House credentials, and their blog gets 5 views a year? I mean, I'm just saying, hypothetically.
Yeah. I mean, they could apply for it, but in the same way that if the Lynchburg Times applied for White House credentials, we probably wouldn't get them. They probably wouldn't get them. I mean, you got to have, stuff like that.
We actually have.
Do we?
Yeah, we're on the list. I get it.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I get. It's not all that. You get bombarded with email,
like
nonstop.
Any other press list.
Yeah, lots. I mean, everything everything POTUS and FLOTUS does is well documented.
Well, he is the president.
He is the president. So, we'll see what happens with this Rochester thing. It's from May, and I don't know why it's only now.
Sometimes the local stuff takes a while
ink.
to come up to the national level. I mean, I'm sure that this is just someone found it, posted it up.
What other interesting stories do you have? If you'd like to call us while Emily gathers her notes together while I am scrambling. We had some technical stuff. Every time we have to, I always push the envelope as far as trying to get it set up, because I had to accommodate Emily to be here today. And so I rearranged everything, and my wonderful assistant, Shara, helped. And then, so we've got this crazy setup, and I just waited too long. I think, anyway, so I wasn't totally prepared, but Emily is. So, Emily, what you got?
Well, you said you wanted to talk about counterfeit merchandise in Warren.
Yeah. This is an interesting. I gotta say, I was a little. I thought it was a bit humorous, in my opinion. So, we got this press release. I'll just pull it up here. Mail. I got a press release from the sheriff of Warren County. Good guy, Dana McKeithrin. One of his former employees told me he thought he was the best sheriff in Virginia. So he's a good guy. He's running for re-election against another good guy. Sean's dad. The name escapes me. Now I'm in trouble. See, I praised one. I got to praise. They're both good guys. He's a sergeant in the Front Royal Police Department. So it's a good guy. Obviously, it'd be hard to beat an incumbent sheriff. Now, let's see here. This was from... They busted a store. We have an office in Bentonville and here in Lynchburg. And in Bentonville, there's a store well known. It's called Foodway. So I got this press release from Linda Rosser. Merchandise and cash seized. And this was counterfeit stuff you see all the time. You see this kind of thing. Is it really a Nike hat? Warren County Sheriff's Office reports that on June 17th, investigators executed a search warrant at Foodway Supermarket on Stonewall Jackson Highway in Bentonville. The Sheriff's Office has been investigating the sale of counterfeit merchandise at the location and was assisted by investigators from the Northwest Regional Task Force, Loudoun County Sheriff's Office, and Blazer Investigations. Some of the items sold represented a wide range of well-known brand names like Louis Vuitton, Rolex, Nike, Lacoste. Is it Azad Lacoste? Or is that different? I don't know.
It's the one with the alligator, yeah.
Isn't it?
I think so.
It's not Hang 10.
No, Lacoste is the alligator.
What happened to Hang 10?
I have no idea what Hang 10 is.
They were all the rage in the 70s.
Oh,
I don't even know if your parents were born then. She's here because she's easier on the eyes than I am. She doesn't have these bags. We need better makeup people. I'm going to talk to Megan McCain and see if she can give us some advice for makeup. Or I forget who was. They're both busting each other, right? Megan and Bristol.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Little cat fight.
Tend not to pay attention to them.
You don't read. You don't catch up on all the gossip.
Oh, I don't.
With the instant celebs. I'm waiting for the one book from the kid. Levi. Yeah, he's got.
He's
some pic.
He's
like
literate.
I think it was by Levi Johnson with somebody else.
Oh, okay, good.
I'm just speculating though. He could be, a regular James Cameron at the pen and typewriter. I don't know.
Has he graduated high school yet? Is this?
I don't know. He's got his Jed. We're picking on him. He's a good guy. He seems like a nice guy, and he never asked to be famous.
That's true.
He just, wanted a piece of booty, and I think they were intoxicated, or she was, and a wonderful child resulted. If the items that were confiscated and seizure would have been authentic, the retail value would be over $579,000. The items that were seized were being sold for approximately $35,000. Also seized was $15,000 in cash.
So is Foodway selling Louis Vuitton?
It's this little store. I'm going to go back to your other story here. I don't want to... Rennie was supposed to call. He hasn't called yet. I'm going to go to my story here. If you Google Foodway in Google News, you'll see my story. I posted it. Headline: Want to buy a watch? Bentonville store merchandise seized. This is great. This story wrote itself. I'm proud of this one. An investigation by 3 Virginia law enforcement agencies and a private Richmond merchandise consultant has determined that the Rolex watches being sold at a rural Bentonville gas station for 6 cents on the dollar are in fact counterfeit. More bad news. Apparently the same applies to the Louis Vuitton bags, another name brand seized. It's the whole, obviously a $20 Rolex, hey man, want to buy a watch? No ethnic group was targeted there. That was just a Cheech and Chong.
Everywhere in the world it happens.
Anyway, so I'm thinking, okay, that's a fake watch, right?
Yeah.
And then you're basically like a loser if you get caught wearing a fake watch. Mm-hmm. Who wears a watch anymore?
It's true.
Anyway, so that would be obvious, but a Nike hat wouldn't. And I talked to the sheriff, and he said, and Sergeant Foster in investigations who did this. The reason, I made light of, it took 3 police agencies and a private investigator to determine the $20 Rolex is fake. The fact is they want to gauge the extent of it there, and it's easy to tell a fake Rolex, but you have to prove it in court. And the other thing with a shirt or a hat, it may not be apparent. It may have a label just like a real one, and so you need some expert to come in and to be able to prove it. And before you arrest someone, you don't want to arrest somebody, as I think back briefly to the New York woman arrested for filming a cop on her front lawn. You don't want to arrest someone and not have the goods.
Sure.
Literally in this case. So apparently it's a big national thing, and this consultant is good at that. He's good at figuring these things out.
Now, is Foodway it's a grocery store?
It's a little convenience store. It's one of those, you're in a rural area. There's not even a red light in Bentonville. This is Bentonville, Virginia. There's 2 Bentonvilles. There are 2. One has Walmart. One doesn't. That's in Arkansas. We're in Virginia. It's a little town, a population like 700. And it's got 2 stores. There's the store that they both have gas. One's a little bigger and has more parking. So that one gets all the business. Because they have more parking and stuff, they have like hot lunches and things. They have you can go in there, I want a corn dog, I want this. The other one will microwave stuff, and so they just get killed by the store that has it. Just grab it and go. And it's Raj and his wife. I thought they owned it, but they're actually the managers, and they live there. There's an apartment in the back, but the owner, I forget his name. It's in the story. Again, it's on. If you go to Google News and type in Foodway counterfeit or something, then you'll find it. And it's a guy in Northern Virginia. So I thought that they owned it, but this other guy does. But, I'm sure there's lots of places there's all kinds of illegal markets. I was talking to a guy in Martin's, and if you notice, you'll see these security guys at like a Martin's, or especially in a Walmart in the city. If you live in a rural Walmart, you don't really see that. They're maybe looking at a camera somewhere. But in a city, if you go on a Friday night, you're just shopping, you'll see these people running, and there'll be like 2 or 3 of them. They're walking through the store real fast with their cell phones glued to their ear, and then they're looking through. You'll see them looking through shelves. They do this here in Lynchburg, and what they're looking for, they'll typically be targeting certain areas. One of the areas is in men's toiletries, because these razor blades are really expensive. Like $3 or $4 a piece.
Yeah.
So you get a pack of them. It could be like $22 retail.
30 easy.
Yeah. So you could easily, have $150, $200 in something this big, and then sneak it out the store. And this guy from Martin's was telling me that there's this whole circuit. What they do is they take it to a buyer, and then they end up at like a flea market. But there's this whole thing where there's this whole delivery system to get rid of these. So you might get, you steal $200 worth of stuff. Maybe you get $30 or $50 for it, and then they sell it, and it ends up 50 cents on the dollar or something at a store or a flea market somewhere. And who's to say? It's not serialized merchandise with a serial number and that's easily traced.
Yeah.
So these things get all the time, and so you see these guys. Some of these stores have quite a security detail inside them because it raises our prices.
I always thought that would be a excellent job to have, to work security for a store or somewhere enclosed.
Unless someone videotapes you from their front lawn.
Well, hey, no, I mean, like, as a security guard in a store, it's like all the, intrigue and action of being a cop without all the danger. I mean, who's going to walk into a Walmart and shoot the security guard?
What do you think of Keith Olbermann?
That happens tomorrow. I don't intend to jinx anyone.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be. It would really suck to be shot. Okay, Keith Olbermann, the whole MSNBC thing. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he quit or resigned, and now he's going to Current TV.
Is that Al Gore's channel?
Yes. After inventing the internet, he invented cable television. But it's interesting. He was the highest rated guy on the show. Now there's Ed Schultz. I like Chris Matthews. I don't agree with him on everything. He's basically straight liberal, right? But he's got a lot of common sense, and he used to work for I think Tip O'Neill. And he's just really wild on TV. He's great. He's funny. He's witty, and it's a smart show. Ed Schultz, no, and Rachel Maddow sometimes. And then Fox News, I love O'Reilly, and Hannity, depending on what he's talking about. But O'Reilly has an interesting show every night. Sometimes I disagree with him. My favorite one time O'Reilly's on TV is when the Lacey Peterson murder trial was going on years ago, and he gets all, banging the table. This program will not exploit the Lacey Peterson murder trial for ratings. And okay, so either that show or like the next day or real soon afterward, they did a story on big executives going on some corporate junket to a golf course, hiring naked women to run around the course. Just at randomly hot naked woman running. And I'm like, okay, so you're not going to exploit. I don't know. I mean, it was great. And he does it with a straight face. He's awesome. I love Bill O'Reilly. I talked to this one guy. He said, yeah, my mom hates his guts. Can't stand him. She watches him every night. Just gets mad. My dad likes the first half of his show, not the second half. Because, the culture quiz. Do you ever watch, or do you watch anything besides PBS and NPR and your Apple device?
I don't watch broadcast news, any sort of television news really at all, except for the local news occasionally. But really, I don't know. In grad school, we had all of the cable news channels on separate televisions in our lab, and Fox News, the volume would come up on it every once in a while, and eventually everyone would just start yelling and saying, that's not journalism, what are they doing over there? And their ticker tape also has tons of typos, which for a print journalist is infuriating.
I never noticed that.
If you watch it for long enough, you'll see them, and they're brutal, and the wording is just misleading, and you'll see a story and you'll be like, what? And you Google it, and it's nothing like what's up there. And I mean, they all have their problems, though. I think that the one cable news program that I've enjoyed was CNN International does a pretty good job at their news. But man, I stick to the print
CNN
sources.
International?
It does they have
That's
some great.
A stretch.
They do. They have some great
They
programs
got
on
that
there.
crazy British guy.
That does the business report.
He's awesome.
Yeah, he's amazing. And
personal
Christiane
stuff
Amanpour
going
is
on.
also an incredible interviewer.
Christiane Amanpour?
Yeah, but she moved. She's
She's
over. Right?
on This Week with she's now on This Week with Christiane Amanpour.
Yeah.
I was going to say with Brinkley. I love Brinkley. I remember you always it's like a song, a remake, and the original, whichever one you heard first you like.
Of course.
And I just love Brinkley with George Will, Cokie Roberts, and Sam Donaldson. He was great with Reagan.
Yeah.
He one time, what did he say to Reagan? He said, "Mr. President, what about Walter Mondale's charges?" Reagan, "Well, Sam, he should pay them." He got in his helicopter. It was great. Reagan was awesome. So this is in the news. The Federal Reserve, Ron Paul's favorite government agency. Fed acknowledges economy is growing more slowly.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about first off in the program.
Is that breaking news? That's at the top of.
Yeah, it happened today. It's funny because it's their second press conference since April when they came out and said, the Fed's going to be a lot more user friendly and talk to the public more. We're in June, so they're doing a great job at that, obviously. But yeah, their estimates are just coming back down. They're less optimistic than they were, and what they're saying is right on par with what all of the the academic economists are saying. So, I mean, really, they got our hopes up, and then we. I
think the economy sucks still, right? Can I say that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest problem. I
don't want to upset our listener.
I think the biggest problem is that the part of the economy that the American public sees the most is jobs. I mean, your take on the economy is whether you can, pay for gas to put in your car and whether or not you, your neighbor, and your neighbor's neighbor are employed. And jobs is the slowest growing part of the economy. So it's tough. And, I feel like we've stopped talking about it. There's so many other issues that Washington's talking about, and there just isn't enough action being taken on jobs.
You have a master's degree in journalism. And
I am underemployed.
Oh, yeah. I'm your boss, I know. And you're right. You're great. And I got this great person. You were actually referred to me by Bill Foy at WSET. You were talking to him, and he said, this, she's good. And so you're terrific. But you should be at, the Washington Post or the New York Times or something.
Part of that is because the industry collapsed as I was earning my degree. The print industry collapsed. But another part of that is just it's a tough economy. I mean, I have actively looked for jobs for the past 3 years in just about every field you could imagine. And it's even hard to get like a receptionist position right now, which, you think once you have a master's degree you're going to be okay. But it's brutal. The job market is brutal. And part of that is just because businesses are not ready to start hiring again. They're still too concerned that if they add positions, they're going to get caught right back in another slump like we were in. So I think that one chunk of the population that gets overlooked is the 20-something-year-olds, the youth, the just out of college, all of those people that were told that you got to go get an education and it doesn't matter that it's expensive, you just got to go get it. And once you have that piece of paper, you're going to be all set. And, there's a lot of us that are jaded and a lot of my peers that are living at home with their parents after getting a college degree because they don't have any other options. And it's sad. And we're not a huge moneymaker for politicians, so we get overlooked a lot. But eventually we're going to be, and we're going to remember it. So. And
then you're going to film them from your front yard.
And get arrested.
What do you think about Greece? Greece, the economy, not good.
Not good.
And the EU is going to bail them out. And then this guy, this analyst just said that you're wasting your money. I think they're going to give them another in the teens billion, and it's part of 150 billion euro, which is like 250, a quarter trillion US dollars.
The bottom line on Greece is that if the EU wants to make their whole union thing work, they've got to bail out Greece. I mean, like, it comes down to, and I can't imagine that Europe would kick Greece out of the European Union. That just is ridiculous, and it goes against everything that the European Union was created for. So I think that it's tough, and I think having a union and a unified currency is tough, and now they're seeing it. And it's their own fault for not noticing Greece was in a bad way earlier, for not stepping in and going, hey guys, get your act together, because, you know, Greece politically has been walking towards this for decades, and I think it's their own fault, and now they're paying for it.
What about these? What about Europe? Should they, they're worried? The analyst, and I can't remember. It's like PIMCO or I forget. It was in the news, and he said they're going to default. That they're putting more money down here that's not going to be paid. And he says not only are they going to default, but it could, but probably not, cause another economic thing. Everyone's just so jittery because the economy sucks. And I don't know what the solution is, but this is bad. And it's basically because of housing was one of the causes. And this bust, if you look at the stock, I wrote this thing that the stock market should be at 3,000. Because if you look at the chart, it was like this. And then in the 90s, 92, Clinton comes in office. It goes down. And then this is not a partisan thing because both parties were for everyone has to have a house. Well, I'm sorry. Some people should not have a house because they don't make enough money to buy a house.
It's true.
But a house, they doubled in value from like 05, I think was the peak or whatever. And I remember I had this lady, I used to do a show in WZRV, WFDR in Front Royal, and it was called the Valley Today, and the News at Noon, Valley Today, the noon hour. And I had this lady on. I'd love to find the recording because I want to play this because this was classic. This lady was on there and she was saying, "Oh, we got this great deal. We got the interest-only loan." And I'm like, "Okay, so explain. You just pay the interest. You don't pay any of the principal." She's like, "Yeah, it's great. You just pay a little bit." I said, "What happens? A balloon after a while?" "Yeah, but to start, you only pay, $150 a month, nothing down for your $800,000 McMansion that is really worth $250, and is now selling for $150. But if it would sell it because it's vacant, so, and I'm like, what if the price goes down? What if you have an interest-only loan, and 3 years into it, it falls in value? Oh, that's never happened. Oh, I mean, you look at the charts, and she has charts, and I'm like, oh my God. And then, the stated income loan, right? I mean, there were part-time cocktail waitresses buying $500,000 houses because on paper, they're looking really good, and they just signed something. They don't need to show anything. And it was just a scam. It was a scam. It was a house of cards, and it started to fall. And now, Ron Paul's right on this. The government is propping it up because more homeowners are voters than non-homeowners. And everyone's afraid. They're just delaying the inevitable. Too many homes were built. I think it just came out, the housing, what was it? It just came out again. It was down, whatever, 4 point, whatever. It was down again, worse since November or something. And, but it's just, it's, houses aren't really worth what the prices are. And you've got this little house and $280, and then now it's back down, $140.
Makes me want to buy a house.
Yeah, if you've got credit.
They're so cheap.
Good luck, because that's easier said than done.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a whole thing. I got to find that recording because that was priceless. I mean, that was just a stereotypical case of exactly what's wrong. What was wrong and what caused it. So now Greece is falling apart. I used to live in Greece, and they're awesome. I mean, the food.
The food is incredible. If
you would like to gain 10 pounds, if you're one of those skinny people we hate, that is like just real skinny, and just, oh gosh, I wish I could gain some weight. And I'm like, oh yeah, I feel you, buddy. Yeah, I'm sorry. But if you're one of those horrible people who are blessed with, if you want to gain 20 pounds, go to Greece for a couple weeks.
I lost weight when I was in Greece.
We had this conversation. I don't know how.
We did a lot of hiking, and we did some kayaking and a lot of walking too.
Is that where you murdered your dog?
No, we didn't take our dog to Greece.
Where did you murder your dog? That was...
I have a boxer, and
you couldn't
she
even
can't
do that
breathe.
right. She survived. It was a setup, right? You were
Yeah,
trying to kill
I
the
was
dog.
trying to kill off the dog,
Tell
and
the
it
quick
didn't
story.
work. We're big hikers in our family, and we have a boxer dog. She's 3 years old, and boxers can't breathe very well, if anyone wasn't aware. They pant like crazy, and we took her on a 6-mile hike that she had done twice before. We had done that same mountain twice before, and there was a thunderstorm, and the temperature spiked like upwards of 90, and she got heat stroke. So once it started raining and the temperature dropped down, she then got pneumonia because her body couldn't regulate the temperature well enough. And we ended up carrying our 56-pound dog 2 miles down the mountain to the car to rush her to emergency care. It was an ordeal.
The poor thing.
She's fine now, of course. Totally fine. Just wants to run around and do everything. But
You had recently taken out a big insurance policy on the dog, I think.
No, of course not.
Prior to the coincidental incident.
Yeah. There's such a fine line. I mean, there's totally tons of people that are crazy about their pets and will do anything, treat them like a family member. But money-wise, there's a fine line between animal and human, I think. And yeah, it cost us a good amount of money to take her to emergency care, but nowhere near what it would cost. Even if your dog dies, the cost of disposing of their body is really expensive.
Can't you just take it to Valley Proteins?
Yeah, right.
It ought to be worth $5 or $6. That's what you do with a horse.
Such a racket.
That's the thing. What do you do with this big horse? Apparently, that people can take them to Valley Proteins, and they'll.
Is that the Jell-O factory?
It's where the big, the big cans of oil. That's a whole thing. Don't get me started. No, I used to have a restaurant. I used to have 2, and we had the big can where you dump your fryer grease.
Yeah.
And then the guy comes, and they used to pay you for the grease. And then the state said you have to use a service to get rid of your grease because some people were putting it down the storm drain, whatever, or in the trash.
This is before the French fry cars.
Correct.
The biodiesels.
Yeah. And then, of course, people were stealing the grease. Well, then the companies realized, we're paying these restaurants to take our grease. Well, there's only one company, Valley Proteins, in Northern Virginia that does it. And the state law mandates that you have to use a company, and there's only one company. So you have to use Valley Proteins to get rid of your grease. So instead of paying you, they started charging you. And then they would take it, and then they would sell it. So they're charging you to take your stuff, which they're reselling at a markup. What a racket. And someone said, I think the guy built like the biggest house in Winchester. I imagine. Thanks.
Sure.
I hope you enjoy it. I paid for part of it. And that's a whole thing. But now I don't know if they pay you or they take it for free because it's valuable now that people figured out. Why I say figured out. When Rudolph Diesel introduced the diesel engine, he said it will burn vegetable oil. The Ford Model T engine would burn vegetable oil. Mm-hmm. You basically just strain it, stick it in there. Diesel will burn anything.
Yeah.
So we've done nothing for 100 and some years because we just had this cheap, and so we just send it to the Middle East, and then they spend the money on airplane lessons and then fly the planes on our dime because these countries would be penniless and destitute but for oil. That's a mini rant. Anyway, we got 2 minutes. So you're hoping a realtor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Will contact you. You made efforts to you're trying to get a new apartment for you and Ryan.
Yeah. Who's
a nuclear engineer, and where's he now?
He's off working.
He's out at a state, right?
Yeah.
He'll probably be mad that I gossip about him all the time. He's a good guy.
He's a good guy.
He could run circles around both of us put together.
Yeah, very fast runner.
All right. Well, we will be back tomorrow at 3:00, I think. Right? 3 works.
3 works for me.
3:00. And I don't know what the call-in number will be, but you can find us on Ustream. I think it's just Dan. The channel is Dan McDermott, all one word. DANMCDERMOTT. Dan McDermott on Ustream. You can tweet me at Daniel P. McDermott with 1 T at the end. If you look at our Ustream thing,
90 seconds.
If you look at our Ustream, I just had a I'm not used to that. Where they talk to you in the 90 seconds, Dan. Are you? Anyway, so but at 10 seconds, everyone hears it.
Oh.
I guess so. If they just chop you off, people don't complain.
That's true.
To the company. Daniel P. McDermott, Daniel P. as in Patrick, McDermott is my tweeter. That's what's his name? Rick Perry won an award for
60
social
seconds.
outreach as a politician, and in accepting the award, he said, "Tweet me" or something, or I used Tweeter. I forget. He screwed up. That was funny. All right, hey, thanks so much. We're on Blog Talk Radio. I don't remember, but it's at 3 o'clock tomorrow. I can't remember what channel it is. There's all this stuff going on.
You'll find us.
And we're on Ustream, and then it'll be on YouTube later. But thanks so much. I'm Dan McDermott with
Emily Williams. Thanks so much.
All right, have a great, great day. And yes.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
All right, we've ended the show, and we're still streaming on the video.
Oh. So I shouldn't make funny faces.
You can do this now. I gotta fix the lighting.
I don't have a light on me. I don't think. That guy. Right?
I'm actually darker than this, and you look at the bags under my eyes. I look like
nothing you can do about
like
that.
an old guy. Well, I don't know. That's not as bad. I don't know.
Yeah, when you lean forward, it's much worse. So maybe there's
I think it's the lighting.
angle.
Maybe it's the lighting. They're so big that there's a shadow.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's the highlight. See, I'm so vain. This is ridiculous.
It's all right.
All right. Well, this was fun. So thanks for watching. If anyone has stuck it out for 56 minutes and 38 seconds.